Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome back to A Better World. This is your host, Mitchell J. Rabin, and I'm very glad you're joining us again today. And we're going to be continuing our continued investigation, research, and education for you, the audience, and myself into different modes, alternative modes of healing. And I use the word alternative only because these that we speak on at this show are not often accepted by mainstream medicine, unfortunately, and it's very much to millions and millions of people's deficit. And one of the leaders is our guest today, Dr. Bernie Seigel, who I have been a fan of ever since I heard of him decades ago. Bernie Seigel has been a pioneer in bringing forth, well, as I said in the newsletter, love, heart, and compassion back into medicine, where unfortunately there was a divorce some time ago, and instead of heart and love and compassion, it was replaced by medications, surgery, and a rather distanced so-called professional attitude. Bernie Seigel has been one of the real forerunners in reestablishing bedside manner, if you will, and going much, much further than that in coming to understand some of the mechanisms of disease and using very innovative, creative ways of enlivening, quite honestly, cellular activity, the immune system, empowering the body to defend itself against any number of different kinds of ailments. Of course, primarily he has been dealing with cancer over the course of decades. He retired from general and pediatric surgery in 1989 and has since dedicated himself to humanizing the medical establishment's approach to patients and empowering them to induce their own healing. His best-selling books include Peace, Love, and Healing and 365 Prescriptions for the Soul. He's a sought-after speaker. He's internationally renowned, and this will be Bernie's second time on A Better World Radio with me, and I'm very pleased to have you on today. Bernie, again, it is a pleasure. Good to have you.
Thank you, Mitch. Good to be here.
What a pleasure.
Last month we had our latest book come out, The Art of Healing, which contains 70 drawings, because I for so many years have wanted to show, again, when you talk about what, I always say you get a medical information, you don't get an education. And it's so limited and disease-focused. But, it's to share how mind and body communicate, things like Carl Jung interpreting a dream and diagnosing a brain tumor many years ago. I mean, medical students should be told those things so they communicate with patients in a different way.
You're right. Bernie, as a matter of fact, I've been wondering and wanting to ask you, with all of your good work, including the art of healing here, uncovering your inner wisdom and potential for self-healing, the fundamentals of the work you've been doing have been consistent through the years. Have you been teaching at medical schools in the United States or elsewhere during this time?
Well, occasionally students will ask, me to come and speak.
Yes.
But
as
the
a
sad
guest speaker.
this, because Yale, of course, has a medical school where I live, New Haven, Connecticut.
Of course, sure. That's where you worked for so many years.
Yeah, another university, Quinnipiac, just started a medical school. I sent them both, a note saying, hey, if you want me to come over, especially with a new school, to talk to students. I mean, to focus them
of course.
On people and caring for people. And, you get a note back, we'll let you know, or you don't even get an answer back. I asked my publisher to send both deans a copy of my latest book. Because I have dealt with this, again, as you were mentioning, for decades, where I would write to the deans of medical schools where I had worked or was trained and say that you made me a good technician, but you didn't teach me how to take care of patients or myself. My feelings, too. And it took 50 years to get an answer. I mean it. The deans wouldn't even answer. I mean, they didn't even send me a form letter saying, thank you for your comments. And I wrote to the latest dean, because they have a new dean now at Cornell in New York, where I went to school, and I said, nobody has ever answered this, because I kept it in the computer all these years, and I sent it to her, and she sent me a little note back. So, at least I got an answer, because I said, what does the school publicize? Our research, and all the wonderful things that we are doing. How about saying the students we're training to be wonderful doctors and care for people, rather than focus on what impresses everybody. I'll tell you something that bothered me, and I don't mean that the people did it for the wrong reasons, but it was Cornell Medical, College in Manhattan, New York City.
Mm-hmm.
It is now called Weill Cornell, Weill. Why? Because the Weill family donated an enormous amount of money to the school. So they
and that wasn't Andrew Weill.
Of the school. No. But
surely,
that's
of course.
The part. Really, if I were running the school or Cornell, I'd say, folks, I'll name a building after you.
Exactly.
But if you want to help
the entire institute, not an old world institution like Cornell.
Yeah.
Oh my word! But even while I agree with you wholeheartedly, but even more concerning to me is that a man of your caliber, if you don't mind my saying, I don't blush, please, but, for those of us who have been around for quite a while, Bernie, you have been truly one of the great pioneers in speaking up and out about what the real nature of healing is in your experience. You've always been humble, you've always been modest, but you've always been outspoken, and you have a track record with your exceptional cancer patient group that was at Yale New Haven for decades. You have so many credentials that a medical school should be chasing you for the honor to have you on their faculty.
Yeah, I have to say, there are some schools that do call me and say, would you come and speak to the students and the staff? And I go.
Yeah.
But I in a sense, what I felt was that those in your community, it's almost like there's conflict and jealousy, that you're more likely to get called to go to another community, another city, than you are to be asked to do something. Now, years ago, one of the physicians in town retired and became the chaplain at the Yale Medical School. He asked me to come, and he and I used to have a class, like a lunch hour kind of class where the students would come and we'd all share and talk. But when he retired as the chaplain, it's also Goodbye Bernie.
Right. That's funny. That's a good. Maybe we can make a Broadway show out of that.
I always say my life could be a wonderful movie, but
right, exactly.
I
hear you. Well, I wish I could recommend that. I myself, who am as you know, a holistic psychotherapist, acupuncturist, and stress management consultant, have really had the burning wish. That was no pun intended, by the way, to teach at medical school bedside manner. the
Right.
psychological dimension
Yep.
of relating to a patient. I can pretend I know nothing about medicine formally as it's practiced, but the psychological and emotional dimensions, I'm very familiar with that terrain, as are you.
I mean, we're not
doctor.
taught how to communicate with patients. You know,
not at all.
And one of our kids did something at school and a picture of this is in the book too. He wrote the word words on a canvas, words, with no space between them. And I realized they became swords. And when he brought that home from school, it was like therapy to me. I realized you can kill or cure people with a knife or words. And so I have an article on my website called Deceiving People into Health. You know, you don't have a course for doctors or nurses on how to communicate with patients. So you don't, scare them and induce trouble.
Correct.
That you speak to them in a way that enhances their ability to heal. And, I had to learn, again, that the mind is incredibly powerful. You talk also, as a psychotherapist. When I wrote my first book, Love, Medicine, and Miracles, I sent a copy of it to Carl Menninger, the psychiatrist, to get his opinion. He wrote back saying, Bernie, I was about to write a book called 10 Hopeless Cases. These are 10 people who are alive and well today are supposed to be dead, but I'm not going to because you wrote it. What a hell of a statement. See, and that's, again, the discrepancy that I saw, that when I wrote articles, because I thought I was discovering incredible things, okay? I mean, I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't know that whole world. So I thought, oh, boy, look what you're discovering with dreams and drawings and everything else. And I wrote articles in medical journals, and it came back saying it's interesting, but it's not appropriate for our journal. I sent them to where it's appropriate. It came back again. This is the psychotherapy, world. And they sent it back saying, yes, it's appropriate, but it's not interesting. We know all this. I thought, what is going on here? They know it all, but why didn't anybody teach it to me? Why did I have to think that I was uncovering
or medical students
the unknown?
Yes. Exactly. Let's come back to the book. Let's come back to the book, Bernie, where you do put those wonderful drawings of patients into them, and you are engaging them in, of course, what's broadly referred to as art therapy. But the results that you have gotten have shown very, very definitive medical results. And I like the way you emphasize not only do their bodies get better, but their heart and soul and sense of meaning gets better. Could you expand on this notion?
Well, it's coming from them, let's put it that way, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
It's not me judging them or criticizing. So when they draw a picture, I can question them about it. I mean, some, like numbers, relate to meaning in your life. And so when
give the whole idea of what, give the idea of the purpose of engaging a patient with crayon or with
to help. Let me say
What's the idea behind it?
The basic idea that I learned was there is intuitive or unconscious wisdom, whatever you want to label it, and there is intellectual wisdom. So when people say to you, "Do you want to have this treatment?" or even where do you want to go for dinner? It doesn't matter. Any choice or question.
Yes.
What kind of job do you want? There's an intellect that may say, oh, yeah, that's the right thing to do. But if your intuitive side says, no, I don't want to do that, that isn't the right thing for me, then you will be in conflict and have trouble whether you're going to dinner or having chemotherapy, radiation, or an operation. So by saying to people, draw a picture, I got to see their inner wisdom and share it with them. So a patient who says, I don't want a certain treatment, may draw a beautiful picture. I mean, because they don't know what the colors mean, or, it's like a dream. It's just this symbolism comes out. And then there are other people who are going through something and say, I don't understand why I'm having all this trouble. Well, if you draw the devil giving you poison, you're going to have a problem, or you're in an empty operating room with nobody caring about you. So I would help people also change their image by using guided imagery and meditation and viewing what they wanted to happen. And let me just take one little, might say anecdote so people understand the power of the mind. That a radiation therapist said to me, he was feeling awful because he just inspected the machine and found out that there was no radioactive material in it, that they had repaired it a month ago. Nobody had put it back. And he said, I feel terrible. I haven't treated anyone. I said, excuse me, you don't know what you're telling me. He said, I'm telling you I feel terrible. I said, look, think about this. If you weren't treating anybody, don't you think you would have known it in a week or two? I said, so all of your patients were acting as if they were receiving treatment. They were getting red skin. They were having their tumor shrink. So you thought they were, and his eyes almost popped out of his head because it never occurred to him that, you know, everybody was hypnotized in a sense and acting as if they were being treated. And that's when you really get impressed by how much the power of the mind plays. So you want to know what is going on, as I say, at both of those levels, your intellectual and your unconscious wisdom, so to speak, that knows really at a deeper level what is the right thing for you to do. And the images and the dreams present that. Because then, you know, I say especially you go to sleep, your intellectual mind is turned off, and then comes forth the wisdom. And I really feel that's the purpose of sleep. I know that may sound crazy to people, but I always say sleep is a dangerous thing to do. People break into your home. You know, a few centuries ago, if you were sleeping in a cave, a tiger could come in and have you for dinner.
Yes.
So, you know, and animals understand that. They don't sleep very long or sleep on their feet, you know. But I think as human beings, we need that sleep to really know who we are and become aware of that inner wisdom.
It allows exactly that other aspect of our psyche to flow outward that's otherwise not accessible during the waking beta wave, brainwave day that we're engaged in.
Or if you're thinking all the time, I call it closing the lid. You know, if all you do is worry and think, then again, that unconscious wisdom can't get through. Because you're busy thinking and worrying, and you know you don't want to pay attention to your dreams and all that crazy. But when you quiet your mind and let the lid off, you know, doing some meditation, some guided imagery, and you're saying, "Hey, I'm ready. Come on out," then these incredible symbols come forth and can be life-saving too. Because, as I said, the body can speak to you. I mean, and I have a previous book called The Book of Miracles. A lady went to sleep in her dream. A woman walks in, tells her with an accent, and a woman who also had darker skin, says to her, you have a lump in your right breast. You need to get it checked. She woke up, felt her breast, found the lump, went to the hospital the next day. They diagnosed breast cancer. They said to her, the doctor who will be taking care of you and your treatment will be coming in a few minutes. The door opens. Into the room comes the woman doctor from India with an accent that was in her dream. Now, you ask, how the hell does that happen? Well, it does. You know, we know past, present, and future. They're all in the drawings. Because, as Jung again said, the future is unconsciously prepared long in advance and therefore can be guessed by clairvoyance. Well, you don't need to go to a mystic to read your unconscious. You can draw a picture and have a dream that will tell you.
Exactly. We are speaking with Dr. Bernie Seigel, the author of many books, latest of which is The Art of Healing, Uncovering Your Inner Wisdom and Potential for Self-Healing. He is also the author of Love, Medicine, and Miracles, and we had him on the show a year or two ago to discuss his book then as well. And your books are always full of these themes, Bernie, regarding the power of love, the power of the dream and the unconscious, or intuition, however you want to put it. And it's just incredibly inspiring for people to hear you speak about one case after another, one person, really, after another, who has engaged in these kinds of explorations with your guidance oftentimes, with drawing, through dreaming, and interpreting the dreams, just like a soothsayer of old, and it has these kinds of abilities, these dreams, to call information in a way that could be incredibly useful in the present. What are a couple of other examples that have impressed you over the years that you have also put into this book?
Well, there's a lot of writing in it. One is about consciousness, that we talked about that, but that it is not local. I mean, that consciousness is...
Yes, non-locality.
Not limited to the individual. And I even mentioned several things about animals, how an animal intuitive friend of mine in California has told me twice now where to find a lost cat in Connecticut. And her description is absolutely incredible. I mean,
really?
You cannot see the reason I changed was, I was going to mention this earlier, is I live by my experience, not my beliefs. Because a lot of doctors would say to me, Bernie, I can't accept that. I said, look, maybe you can't explain what happened, but why say you can't accept it? It happened. I'm telling you a case history. And that's why I became a storyteller, because when you try to convince doctors, they'll start arguing with you. Yeah, I was going to mention this to you that people don't know. A Yale student, because when I was trying to do research, if people didn't think what I was doing made sense, I got no support for the research. But this student at Yale said, look, I'll do the research as my master's thesis. So he compared our breast cancer group members, the ECAP group, with a control group. He came out with statistics that showed really significant improvement in survival with the members of our group. The professor who was overseeing his thesis said to him, that can't be true. Can you imagine a professor saying that to a student? That can't be true. No. Change the control group. So he changed the control group to make the professor happy, and then everything just came out even. See, and then I get criticized.
When you say change the control group, you mean he changed the people who were in the control group?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
and when he changed it out, what was the result then?
Yeah, well, he then made them into survivors. He picked out ones who survived longer. So they then compared to the people in our group. I'm always saying that you don't have to join our group to be an exceptional cancer patient, if you know what I mean.
Sure, exactly.
So what his professor made him do was compare exceptional patients with exceptional patients, and then they were all the same. But when the control group was just a random selection, they did not do as well. And then when people began to do research to prove I was wrong, and it came out right, because they had no interest in proving me right, then people stepped back and said, maybe, the relationship support group, attitude, have something to do with it. And also, you use the term self-healing, which I want to emphasize to people. Doctors, if you get better when you're not supposed to, you become a spontaneous remission or a miracle. So nobody learns a damn thing from it. But Solzhenitsyn, in his book Cancer Ward, impressed me with his intuitive wisdom. He uses a symbol. One of the men tells the other guys on the ward, the cancer ward, I found a book in the medical library. It says here there are cases of self-induced healing, not recovery through treatment, but actual healing. And it was as though self-induced healing flooded through out of the great open book like a rainbow-colored butterfly. When I read that, it was like, thank you. You know what I'm talking about.
Beautiful.
See, the rainbow is your life in order, and every color has meaning. People have to understand that. I always remember my friend Elizabeth Kubler-Ross saying, Bernie, you could go anywhere on this planet with a box of crayons and communicate with people because, it has the same meaning for everyone. And so you got the rainbow, and then the butterfly is a symbol of transformation. So you want to extend your life, have a self-induced healing, then change your life. Create a life that you love, harmony, order, and you'll be amazed at what happens.
So interesting, so interesting. You're also raising an interesting and valuable distinction between the notion of healing, and you're implying what a doctor does in a hospital, which they've actually backed away from the word curing because there are so few cures anymore. But healing is a much larger word, and I happen to know that the etymology of the word, going back to the ancient Greek of the word healing, comes from and is related to the same word as holy and to make whole and hallowed. So you see that the notion of healing is way more holistic, if you will, comprehensive for a person, heart, mind, body, and soul. And this is no longer, and it used to be, as you know, a notion in medicine, that the soul has no place. And to me, that's when medicine, Western medicine, started to go downhill.
Right. And when people heal their lives, they derive physical benefits. I mean, two practical things for people to understand. Again, this was a graduate student. He took two actors, a male and a female, gave them a comedy routine to perform, just to read a script. Their immune function went up. Their stress hormone levels went down. He drew their blood while they were reading the script. Then he gave them a tragedy in which the man murdered the woman's husband, and they meet. And, of course, their immune function went down and stress hormone levels went up. Now, what impressed the hell out of me was these are just two people reading a script. It's not even their life, and it's changing their chemistry. And that's what people have to realize. You know, well, I have a letter that you'll love this because this was a woman who was quite ill for a long time, and she wrote me and said, this time, when the doctor said you have a few months to live, I agreed because I felt terrible. So I bought a dog, and I put in a backyard wildlife habitat, and I laughed more, and I took vitamins, and, you know, she went on with other things. And her letter ends with, and I didn't die, and I'm so busy I'm killing myself. Help, where do I go from here? You see, that, you know, I told her just to take a nap, but it you know, when she accepted her mortality and spent the time doing what she loved, and I may add, you know, in terms of relationships, even a dog. I mean, women live longer than men with the same cancers. Oh, you want to you'll love this, how intellectual and stupid some doctors are. And forgive me for that term, but a doctor wrote an article on malignant
intellectual
melanoma.
Or stupid? Please go on.
He the stupid, but he wrote an article on malignant melanoma, and he pointed out that women with the same stage, depth, site, etc., as men of the melanoma lived longer. What was his conclusion? Estrogen and progesterone must somehow be protecting the women. I thought, what kind of an idiot are you? Don't you have a family? Don't you have a pet? Do you have anybody in your life so you understand relationships? Because my comment to him, if I ever met him, would be, excuse me, I want to tell you, married men live longer than single men with the same cancer. So sleeping with estrogen and progesterone must be protecting them. You know, and everybody laughs when you say that. But it's about relationships, you know, and people have a heart attack, go home to a dog. They had 1/5 the mortality rate after a year of one doctor who did the study, 5% versus 26% with no dog. Then I read another article. If you had a cat, you had 25% less chance of having a heart attack. And when stockbrokers were sent home with, you know, blood pressure medication and a dog, their pressure went down further than stockbrokers who only took medication. So, again, it's the chemistry. You pet a dog, studies have been done, your bonding hormones go up, oxytocin, serotonin. So, again, you feel better. You relate to people. I mean, anybody with a dog knows when you go for a walk, I mean, everybody's talking to your dogs and then to you after the dog, right?
That's right. It's all dog talk. Exactly. Yeah. But you're really, there's something underneath a lot of what you're saying, which is that our relationship to a pet, and I dare say even more to another biped human being, brings the love factor, and as you say, the serotonin and oxytocin levels are my two favorite hormones, up to the place I think they're supposed to be in a normal human life. The joy factor. Look, we have Norman Cousins, for The Anatomy of an Illness, remember? And he was also one of the leaders in promoting the idea of laughter. I just got finished writing an article for the Huffington Post about the physiological effect of love and laughter in our lives.
Well,
we all know this.
Included this, that the cancer patients, this was, I think it was done in one of the European countries, cancer patients were told to laugh 5 and 6 times a day for no reason. They ended up living longer than the control group, which, laughed if something funny happened in their life. But and my wife used to do stand-up comedy. I always said she was a female Henny Youngman during my lectures. At first we used it as a break, if you know what I mean. I used to think of it as an intermission.
Oh, that's
She'd
hilarious.
go up and get
I have
people
no
to
idea
laugh.
about this.
But one night it was too awkward to climb down and take her seat while she went up on the stage. So I just stayed on the stage, and I'll tell you, it impressed the hell out of me to watch the audience get younger, sit up straighter, look healthier after 15 minutes of laughter. So, from then on, it became really a significant part of the talk, saying, pay attention to how you feel now and how you feel when you're done laughing. And, she used to give the men a hard time because, again, the majority of the audience is always women when it's going to be something about feelings and emotions and, even drawing pictures. I'm not an artist and I'm afraid I'll do it wrong. I have to tell you this, when you talk about men, I said to a male engineer, I need a drawing, of you, your treatment, your immune system, your cancer cells. He gave me a full written page of instructions on how to draw the picture. I think it's in the book. And I always show this when I'm lecturing. I say, who do you think did this when I ask them to draw a picture? And everybody bursts out laughing when I say, a male engineer. But it had an impact on him, thank God. You know what I mean? He realized, wow.
Did he see the humor in it is the question. Did he see the humor?
But it made him change. And years later, I showed it at a lecture, and somebody in the audience said, that's my father's handwriting. It was his kid who made me make a print of it for him to put up on the wall at home because it said it had such a wonderful effect on his father that he wanted a copy of it.
That is wonderful. I often tell people, Bernie, that my gurus are people like Jackie Mason and Woody Allen. They're my real mentors. And to be able to take a look at life, which is so irrational. Look at what just happened in Washington, D.C. It's so preposterous. Nobody could believe what actually goes on. No fiction writer could approximate what actually gets passed off as so-called real life. So if you have a healthy attitude, which is, I think, essential, then you can see the whole thing in the lighter, more, levity-related way and improve your immune system at the same time.
Yeah, that's an important point also from the standpoint of professions. I mean, one of the things I often felt is that we in medical school, as well as in even going into politics, they don't ask you, they'll say, why do you want to be, a doctor? And so you fill out the form to make them happy. But they don't really, while you're in medical school, say, what are the healthy reasons for becoming a doctor? What are the unhealthy? Why do you want a certain specialty? I always say, somebody like Kevorkian, if he'd had some analysis in medical school, why do you want to be a pathologist? Why are you so involved in death? He could have run a hospice instead of killing people, and ending up in jail. So again, or myself as a surgeon saying, I like people, I want to fix things. Well, Bernie, you can't fix everything. What are you going to do then? This I love saying to people because, again, Carl Menninger was helping me with a lot of issues. And he said, Bernie, consider this. What if you became a surgeon as a reaction formation to your destructive tendencies? So I love when people say to me, why are you a surgeon? I say, I love, tearing people up, cutting them up. I don't want to end up in jail, so I became a surgeon. Now I get paid for it. And they look at you like, oh, my God. They're not quite sure, if you're serious. But, think about, because he said, why would you pick oncology? Why pick, a disease it's hard to cure?
In other words,
you need to fail.
there's some form of, that's an interesting interpretation, but there's some self-reflection in the professions that we select. And I think Carl Menninger is correct. And Freud would say the same thing, and Jung would say the same thing. You know, you liked playing with knives. So you could have either been, pardon the expression, a cut-up, on the streets of New York, or you could become a surgeon and do something, make a constructive contribution to society, which, of course, you did.
Yeah, no, that's just what Menninger said. He said aggression is normal. I mean, I thought, what do you mean aggression is normal? He said, Bernie, you could be a football player. You could cut down a tree. You can build a house, put your energy into it. You don't have to hurt people.
Take a look at what is the motivation, let's say the unconscious motivation behind the actions. It's a very good inquiry, and I think we all can benefit from it, What's really interesting, to step back from your work, Bernie, over the course of many years, first of all, if I may say, I like setting a context, and a lot of the work that you have been doing over the years, a lot of it originates from way, way back, long before our so-called modern Western society, going back to the Greeks and even before. But rather than go that far, let's just go back to the Simonsons, because I met them at an American Psychiatric Association meeting, even though they're not psychiatrists. But they were doing a presentation back, my God, this was in the early 80s, and I was very impressed with their work, and I know they had a big influence on you.
Yes, I mean, that was one of the first things that started me on my path. They and Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And I attended, see, this is what, again, I found incredible. Carl Simonton is coming to Connecticut to run a conference, to help cancer patients. He was doing the imagery and other things. And he's a doctor, radiation therapist. I thought, this is a nice conference for doctors. It'll give me more tools to help patients. I won't feel so bad.
In the standard medical way, right.
Yeah. There were 125 people in the room. I was the only medical doctor attending the conference.
Oh, my.
I could not believe it. There were several psychotherapists, and all the rest were cancer patients. But that's what ended up why my life changed, because my patients were now sitting with me. You know what I mean? Not on. I put my desk against the wall when I got back to my office. They were not on the other side. And this is a quote from one of them, and I always say, I wish I could find her sometime. She said, Bernie, you're a nice guy. I feel better when I'm in the office with you, but I can't take you home with me, so I need to know how to live between office visits. See, that's what started me trying to help my patients live, because I figured if they were living, they'd live longer. And they didn't show up. I mean it. When you send out 100 letters saying, come on, I'll help you live a longer, better life, I was expecting hundreds of people, and less than a dozen women showed up. And I realized that's why my wife labeled them exceptional. These were people who weren't afraid to, take responsibility. I don't use the word patient. See, to me, the patient is a submissive sufferer. But I use the word respite. Be a responsible participant in your life and your health.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that, Oh, I have never used the word patient for my own work, and I very much appreciate and respect that, because it creates an authority relationship that is, I don't even have to comment, do I? But
exactly. The MD is medical deity, that's
right, medical deity.
I'm God and I only have time for 3 questions. That kind of thing. It's just, and again, studies show
and this isn't even Passover. Right?
Yeah. And if the doctor is compassionate, people recover faster. Because, again, all these little studies over and over. Did the doctor listen to you? Was the doctor compassionate? Yes. They get better faster. Whatever the disease. I mean, it could be the flu. It could be something more serious. But when the doctor doesn't listen, isn't compassionate, people don't respond. They're sensing that consciousness in a negative way, and it affects them too.
one of the good things of many that your work over the course of decades has demonstrated to us statistically is that these kinds of choices that you go into in this book, The Art of Healing, and by the way, everyone, I want to just remind you we are spending the entire program with Dr. Bernie Seigel, the pioneer par excellence of bringing what are known as alternative healing methods into the world of medicine. This last book is called The Art of Healing, Uncovering Your Inner Wisdom and Potential for Self-Healing. And as you know, this is Mitchell J. Rabin for A Better World, and we're on every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bernie, with all of the work you have done hands-on with people over the course of years, from people with cancer and other kinds of illnesses, not only have you, of course, personally empowered them and helped them understand something about the nature of healing, but you have really demonstrated to the larger medical community, as well as everyone, that these therapies have as much, and in some cases even more, statistically shown efficacy than standard medical practice. And even if they're not to replace them, they should certainly be conjoined with them. Could you comment on that? Because this is a profound statement
because I was thinking
that needs to be digested. Yeah.
Back when AIDS, first broke out as an epidemic, I worked with lots of AIDS patients. And again, and psychiatrist George Solomon in California came up with a list called immune competent personality. That's on my website too. Because he noticed also that certain personalities did better, with AIDS in terms of surviving. Oh, and when you go further back in the literature, Bruno Klopfer, a psychologist, he was given 24 or 5 personality profiles of cancer patients. He correctly predicted 20 out of 24 times who would have a rapidly growing tumor, who would have a slow-growing tumor. Twice he said, I can't tell. Twice he was wrong. And, but you see, this is the big part of the problem. Again, there were many psychotherapists, psychiatrists who had written books, The Will to Live, and Getting Well Again and things like that, because they worked with patients on that emotional level and saw the benefit of it. But I always say it's like an electrician and a plumber, that I'm a surgeon, they're a psychiatrist. So nobody teaches me what, the psychiatrist experiences and knows, like the electrician can't fix your plumbing kind of thing. But medicine is taking care of a person. They need to know the entire person because it's all, a part of the ultimate effect in what happened. And what I also realized was that nobody was against success, so I did all my crazy things at the hospital, from music in the operating room. 30 years later, a study showed the benefits of music. I was called an explosion hazard, see, because you're bringing in a tape recorder. It's an electrical appliance. We have explosive gases. But within a week or two, nobody complained because they all felt better. So they said, bring it. It's okay. And my patients did better. Yeah, so, again, things became hospital policy because I would laugh. I mean, I'd come into one of my patients and they'd say, this place is so nice. I'd say, what do you mean? How they were taking care of me. And I think, those are all the things that, I had taught the staff to do. And then but my patient said, when I asked them why they did it, they said, it's hospital policy. Then I would burst out laughing. Because I never got credit for anything.
You never were acknowledged,
hospital policy, right?
Yes.
But, as long as they did it, it's fine. Yeah.
That's what matters.
Okay.
This is interesting in light of what we were speaking about earlier regarding your being asked to teach at medical school. Instead, you could say, except for the periodic lecture, you were influencing the larger system of the hospital. Through such things as that.
Yeah. You just reminded me of something.
Yeah.
When I started, medical students started coming to work with me. They would have a rotation of a month at a time. They'd spend a month with me. The dean of the medical school called me. He said, Bernie, all these students are signing up here, because I guess they had to register so their school knew they were attending,
Yes.
And I said, yes. I said, they're coming to work with me. And he said, would you like to be a course? I said, sure. And then he gave me like a pile of papers 4 inches high to fill out. I said, look, I am not spending my time filling out all these papers. The students are coming. I don't need this. The students kept coming. I get a call from the dean. We're making you a course. No papers to fill out at all now, see? Because it's like, if I'm getting well known, why shouldn't they have the credit? So then I filled out a description, which included lots of stuff, see? And then the chief of surgery called me up. Bernie, can I talk to you? So I go to his office. What is it? We wanted to turn your course over to psychiatry because of the description you put in, including Carl Jung and other things. And I started laughing because he said, the psychiatrist said, you're a surgeon. What's he going to do in psychiatry? And I just burst out laughing. I said, good. I did that to drive everybody crazy. I said, you can edit out any sentence you want. But it was called surgery, mechanical or healing art. And the students, as I said, would spend a month with me. And I mean, really like my shadow. I would go to bed, they'd go to their room. But, when I'd get up in the morning, we'd start again. So they saw me and my troubles as well as the good parts of being a surgeon. They really sensed what it was like. And the other was, which was really something that I found beneficial, they were an observer, see, because I can recall coming out of a hospital room and the student saying, you aren't listening. You didn't answer what they were asking you. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, I'm telling you, you aren't responding. I said, well, let's go back in. And I'd walk back in the room, and I'd say to the patient, the student is telling me that I wasn't listening. The patient always said, yeah, he's right, or she's right. And then they would tell me, and I would respond. But I thought, that is so, I didn't accept it as criticism. I thought, this is so wonderful that I'm not walking away from a patient and they're feeling he didn't respond and answer what I needed. And this way, we go back in and the patients would love it, to be able to talk and share. Yeah.
It's creating the feedback loop that is required, and you could almost look at all of society as missing that feedback loop through which we can help regulate ourselves and each other in a healthy kind of way. Right?
The listening, I learned from Helen Keller, because a quote of hers, I won't say the whole thing, but it ended with, deafness is darker by far than blindness. And I learned what I needed to do was listen to people. Then they gave me credit for what they heard themselves saying. You know what I mean? It helped them know themselves and make the right choices. And then they'd say to me, that was an incredible conversation, thank you. And I hadn't said a damn thing except but they heard it and it made the difference. Versus, because I used to test it too, and some patient or one of the kids in our family would say to me, Dad, I got a problem with the patient. I'd say, okay, this is what you need to do. And invariably they'd say, you're really not helpful. But when I listened to it 20 minutes, they'd always say, thank you, that was great. You're a big help. And
absolutely
they knew what
right.
to do. Yeah.
And you're basically outlining the true art of psychotherapy. And it's not advice giving, but it's listening. And it's the purity and preciousness of one's attention and mindfulness on the matter of another person and their story. Not the story of excuses of why they didn't do something, but their inner story. You could almost say the unfolding of their soul story about what it is, the trials and tribulations of their lives.
Right.
Would you say?
The thing that I call it, I called it reparenting, because a suicidal teenager said to me one day that you're my CD. And I said, what do you mean I'm a CD? She said, you're my chosen dad. And so I do that all the time now, and I recommend it to you. It doesn't matter how, people could be older than you are, but when you say, hey, if you need a father, I'll be your father, it lets them know you love them. I always say, I don't have to like what they're doing, but I would love them. And I learned as a physician that when I took that role of showing them, I care about you, you're worth something, and always give them return appointments. Because think, whether you're a therapist or a doctor, somebody comes in to see you, they don't do a damn thing you suggest, and they keep it up. They don't change. They don't do a damn thing. So what do most people say? Goodbye. You know, the opposite of love is indifference, rejection, and abuse. So they get rejected.
Yes.
Don't come back.
Yes.
You're wasting my time. But I would always say, I'll see you next week. And 3-6 months later, they began to realize, I must be worth something. He keeps telling me to come back. That's when they started to change. And then the really dramatic changes would happen because we had that relationship. And they began to see, hey, I'm worth something. And then they care for themselves. Because let me add a study of Harvard students. Did your parents love you while they were in college? They're asked. Those who said yes, 25, 35 years later, middle age, 1 in 4 had suffered a major illness. Of those who said no, 98% had. So that's why I'm always saying people don't need information. They need inspiration. Yeah. You know, I keep saying, laughing at the mayor of New York, I mean, he's trying to help people. But, you know, when they talked about making smaller bottles so people will drink less sugar or, you know.
Right.
I mean, it's like, hey, they'll buy 2 bottles. I mean, what are you talking about? You need to get on the air and say, everybody who lives in New York, I love you. I'm your father. I want you to take care of yourself.
Exactly.
Because I've seen
I want you to live a long and healthy life.
Yeah, our electric company years ago, there was an ad in the paper saying that they were going to build an outdoor shelter for the smokers so that they wouldn't smoke in the building. I wrote them, I said, did it ever occur to you to offer your smokers money to take a non-smoking course instead of saying go and kill yourself out in the yard? You know, even I've got to add one more to make you smile because it drove me nuts.
I'm already smiling.
My letter, Cat Fancy magazine. They had a letter, full page, from a woman who was a smoker with her husband. They had 9 cats. 1 died of lung cancer. The others are having breathing problems. And I always say to people, okay, what do you do now? Your cat dies. The others are having trouble breathing. You know, and if you're in front of an audience of healthy people, they say, well, you stopped smoking. I said, no. This is Cat Fancy magazine. It's not about people. And the letter ends with, the letter to the editor ends with, Doug and I now smoke in the yard. We love our cats more than the convenience of smoking indoors. We're not killing our cats anymore. We hope you're not killing yours. I thought, how the hell can you publish that without a comment that they're killing themselves? Because Maimonides, the Jewish physician-philosopher, 900 years ago, wrote this sentence. It blew my mind when I came across it, thinking of how we haven't changed. He said, if people took as good care of themselves as they do their animals, they would suffer fewer illnesses. That was 900 years ago, and here we are still doing the same stupid things. You know, we love our pets more than ourselves. Yeah. And that's why
something.
You want to save the world, bring up every kid loved with a reverence for life. Because can I give you a test question? Do you mind if I test you?
No.
You go out on the street tomorrow, and as you're walking on the street, you see several earthworms. What do you do when you see them?
I smile. I do not ride over them with my bicycle, I'll tell you that.
Right. But, you see, what I've been doing for years is picking them up and putting them back on the ground, thinking I'm rather neurotic.
But where were they when you found them? Where were they when you found them?
On the sidewalk or the road, the pavement.
Oh, okay. But were they on their way over to the dirt?
Well,
they were,
they were like drying and dying, and I don't think I don't know if they would have made it back to the dirt.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
You see, I live in a park here in New York City, Bernie. So any sidewalk is not far from a tree and
that's
the dirt
like a little
around
path. Yeah. No, but I'm talking about being out on the road, like when I'm walking the dog or something.
Oh, I understand.
And I thought,
good for you.
Kind of neurotic, but it's okay, keep it up. But then I came across Albert Schweitzer saying exactly the same thing. He said, if you see an earthworm, put it back on the ground. If you see an insect in a puddle, give it a leaf to climb on. And I thought, if we were all brought up that way, what a different world it would be.
Reverence for life.
Yeah.
I ultimately received that kind of education from my study of Buddhist psychology, frankly.
Yep.
That's where I got my main exposure to those kinds of ideas.
Yeah,
and
I tell people
they're
look
precious.
for common themes. That
Yes.
whether it's Buddha, the Bible, others,
It doesn't matter.
Lao Tzu. Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
If it's a repetitive message, it must be working. So
exactly.
adopt it.
It must mean something that everybody across the world and across the ages keep repeating the same idea.
Two terms I have. One is, which you are, I know, a life coach, helping people.
Mm-hmm.
And the other is a love warrior. That you use love as your weapon. And, that's why I love reading about Gandhi, how he would drive the British crazy, doing nice things. And they don't know what to do with him because they're mad at him and he's helping them and being, nice to people who are having trouble.
Yep.
And and even today I was reading where when he was criticized, he even became better because he was learning more about himself. So he didn't get upset about being criticized.
That's that feedback loop. Right.
Yeah.
We were talking about before. Before, since you brought that up, Bernie, I was thinking about, as you were speaking of Afghanistan and when the entire matter of 9/11 occurred, and it was resolved by the White House that we were going to go into Afghanistan to, I guess, start a war to find one person who they said was guilty. I thought, why don't they send packages of food and drop that down? Why don't they send medical supplies? That's what the people
warrior,
need.
Right,
exactly.
Right.
I qualify.
Yeah, and I know I always say to people when somebody's driving you nuts, saying, "Hey, you took my parking spot. What the hell's the matter with you?" You say, "I love you."
Right.
Then they don't know what to do with
yes.
you. I mean, one specific example that touched me, and I hope it helped this boy, because it was a teenager behind us in heavy traffic, and he was screaming and cursing me as if it was my fault. There are 30 cars lined up, and I have to listen to him. I got out of the car. I went over to him with our kids saying, "Dad, you could have a gun." But I went over to him, and I said, "I want you to know I love you." I said, "I'm sorry, your parents don't." See? And after I said that I love you and I'm sorry your parents don't, he made a U-turn and drove away. And I thought, maybe you shouldn't have said that. But then later I thought, maybe that's the best thing that ever happened to him. Because if he takes a look at his life, it may save his life and change him totally to, to have heard that statement and realize that guy knows it's true and how I'm behaving.
Exactly.
On the other hand, I've had
it's a beautiful story,
a teenager call me to say, I'm going to commit suicide, because he had AIDS due to sexual abuse from parents and others. And he was like a sexual slave. And he called me and said, I'm going to commit suicide. I said, Tony, why don't we kill your parents? I can get you a gun. And he said, no, I never want to be like them. I never forget those words. I never want to be like them. That he didn't want to hurt anyone. And I may add, he was going to jump in front of the A train, the subway in New York, and the train didn't show up. So thank God.
What good news. What good news.
He called the 800 suicide hotline, and they came and rescued him. But that's when you believe in angels, Yep.
Yes, indeed. That's a whole other conversation, my God. In closing, we're just about out of time, Bernie, but I really would like you to share for the more rigorous members of our audience who may or may not appreciate your wonderful art of storytelling, which is so healing and therapeutic, and I so appreciate. If you could just trot out a couple of the facts/statistics of what you have observed. I know you said a few of them at the beginning, of what the therapies that you cover in this book and prior books have to say to us of those people who need medical attention if they were to engage in some of the practices that you've been putting forward.
I think that, in medicine, you don't get oriented towards successful treatment. I mean, if you went into the business world, you would imitate people who were successful. And when you learn you have a diagnosis, if you said to the doctor, well, what can I do, to have the best chance of recovering? The doctor doesn't say, well, here's a list, see, do this. The doctor says, take your pill. I mean, those are the ads. I'm depressed, unable to cope. I went to see my physician. He prescribed an antidepressant. That's an ad that I wrote to the pharmaceutical company saying, put in, please tell me what is going on in your life. The doctor asking for that, not
right,
just saying here's a pill. So I'd say
get to the bottom
always
line
ask
of
yourself,
the person's life.
what's going on in my life that might have made me vulnerable now. It's not about blame, guilt, and shame. It's what could have made me vulnerable. See, we have studies now that show that loneliness affects the genes that control immune function. So if you said, my husband died, I got a divorce, I moved across the country to a new job, well, take care of yourself, develop relationships, look at your life.
Exactly.
I always say that if you love your life and love your body will do the best it can. See, another is, it's very practical. Don't get up on Monday morning, because we have more heart attacks, strokes, suicides, and illnesses on Monday. Of course, if you don't get up Monday, Tuesday will be a problem. But, it's to look at the choices in your life, because I like the expression that we're running out of time, as the show is ending. And accept the fact you're here for a limited amount of time, and let your heart make up your mind as to how you decide about that. Because I learned that basically everyone who exceeded expectations had a story. Because when I would meet patients from our office I thought were dead and say, what are you doing here? You didn't come back to the office. Well, there was no point in it, from what everybody told me. But when I said, well, what happened? They always had a story. And I realized, again, it's living their true, authentic life that made a difference. To quote someone I always talk about, a landscaper, you retire. You're more likely to develop cancer after you retire. Those are things the poets and novelists know, doctors don't talk about. But he refused treatment because he said, it's springtime, I want to go home and make the world beautiful. So when I die, I'll leave a beautiful world. To make a very long story short, he died at age 94 with no sign of cancer. Because he never retired. And I have to say, he became my teacher. I spent time with him to see the world differently, look at it through his eyes. So, again, I'd say follow your heart, do what's right for you, contribute your love to the world, live your authentic life. Don't lose your life because others impose a life on you. Express feelings, say no to what you don't want to do, don't internalize anger, and then you become an authentic person and live a longer, healthier life.
Indeed. That is beautiful. Dr. Bernie Seigel, that's an excellent level and notion to leave on. I want to just let you know from the bottom of my heart truly how much I appreciate your work for all of these years. I've been a great fan of yours. You've been a mentor to me, and I have quoted you.
Let me compliment you,
oftentimes.
Because it's so hard to get men to deal with these issues. They don't come to the support group. When they come when their wife is sick, they say, I'm her chauffeur, never dealing with emotional issues. And it's so damn rare for them to ever come to take care of themselves. So I've got to give you a pat on the back to say that, as a male, you are doing what we need to do and are a balanced human being. Yeah.
I very much appreciate that, my friend. I really do. I really do. So, again, we have Dr. Bernie Seigel on as our guest today, the author of several books, the latest of which is The Art of Healing, Uncovering Your Inner Wisdom and Potential for Self-Healing. If you go to our website, abetterworld.tv, we have the Amazon link right there. And our website for you, Bernie, is?
Yeah, it's Bernie Seigel, Siegel, MD, BernieSeigelMD.com. Easy to remember.
That's great. Bernie Seigel, thanks so much for joining us again on The Better World, and we'll have you again. We'll have you again in the future.
Thank you.
Absolutely. God bless now.
Thank you.
Oh, sure. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
What a pleasure it is. What a pleasure it is, Dr. Bernie Seigel. I truly mean every word I said. He's been an inspiration to me and to countless others over the course of years, both people who have been suffering or people who are interested in a broader education than what standard linear rather mechanical medical science brings to the foreground, even though it has many excellent attributes, no question about that, and professionals such as myself who have been working with people for over 30 years. And Bernie's words, Bernie's work has been truly sensational for so long because he was a pioneer and was willing to travel where others were not willing to tread. And he really deserves all the kudos that go with someone who's been so robust for so long. This is Mitchell J. Rabin. I should also say that a conversation like this should not be ended without appreciation expressed toward Dr. Milton Erickson and Dr. Ernest Rossi, who both have led the way in understanding and articulating, while utilizing, the power of the mind in hypnotherapy with cancer patients and any medical patient across this country. For decades, both of them worked tirelessly at using the power of placebo, the power of suggestion, the power of the word in helping people without drugs and without surgery oftentimes heal completely for long periods of time, sometimes forever, until other causes may have entered their lives to lead to their eventual passing. But these two are truly among the other pioneers who were before many of us to recognize and utilize, as I said, the power of the mind, the power of the subconscious, the power of suggestion, of embedded command. And this can be used, of course, for the good. That's the way to go, therapeutic. Or we see in some contexts in society it's being used for other means through the selling of products and the like on television commercials. But leaving that aside, let's just focus on the good value of using language and perception and belief system, as Dr. Bruce Lipton, my dear friend and colleague, in his work as a cellular biologist, who came to understand the power of language and belief system on the life of the cell, and was largely involved in the whole domain known as epigenetics. He has brought so much awareness to the interface of our mind, our emotions, our perception, our beliefs, to the life of our very DNA itself. I mean, is that fascinating or what? The good news of all of that and of Bernie's work at large is that we can really take responsibility for our own lives, our own health, our own well-being, and we have a say in what goes on. Oh, yes, of course, there are powerful environmental influences, no question, be it the electromagnetic field surrounding us and poor quality GMO'd food inside of us and, fluoridated water being imbibed, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, yes, and yes. We know these are all toxic and contaminated and can be ill-producing. But I'm going to say that with a healthy mind and a really good attitude and a lot of love and a lot of laughter, you got it. That's right. We can laugh our way out of the most preposterous situations that would have otherwise killed us. But with a lot of love, whether it's human love with your friend, your lover, your family, your spouse, whomever, or the love for a dog or a cat or a parakeet, whatever your choice, love itself in relationship with whomever that relationship may be, God herself helps to build our health, our strength, our courage, and our well-being. And it's on that note that I would like to leave you all this very healing day. So glad that you joined me again on A Better World. Thank you again, Dr. Bernie Seigel, for your lifetime of contribution and good work to the art of healing. You've educated motivated us all. It's such a deep pleasure and privilege to have him on A Better World Radio yet again. And remember that you can contact me at mjr@abetterworld.net. Yes, MJR, my initials, at abetterworld.net. I love your feedback. I love your comments. Spread the word. Grab this link from our website or from Blog Talk Radio and forward it to the people that you know who might benefit from it. People who might be sick, people who might be suffering, people who might just simply be sad, lonely, anxious, depressed, who could get an uplift from Dr. Bernie Siegel's words or mine, and both, and the rich dialogue we had that can truly inspire people to step up to their lives, step up to the plate, and no matter how debilitated they may be, at least for their last days, weeks, or months, or years, they can continue on with some sense of the robust and face life, nose to nose, eye to eye, cheek to cheek, and as we say in the Taoist tradition, belly to belly, and make the most of what they have. Thanks again for joining us. Make sure to visit us at our website and sign up for our newsletter, free every week, which announces who our guest will be when we have a guest on A Better World Radio, and who our guest will be for A Better World TV, aired every Tuesday night at this point at 10:30, although that may be changing relatively soon. You can watch it on television, of course, in Manhattan, or online on our site. Again, thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you all next